What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today is finally something I've been meaning to do for just about forever, and I'm going to be doing salary cap or off-season 101 today. All of the basic concepts, ideas, void contracts, restructures, signing bonus versus base salary, 51-man roster versus 53-man roster, all of it. I'm going to try to get to so many different things today from a salary cap standpoint. Like I said, I've been meaning to do it for just about forever. There's some math, there's some nerding out. I know one of the reasons that you guys are here 365 days a year is because you are huge junkies just like I am. So today is for you. For those of you who have not had a chance to dig in and get super in depth into the salary cap and all the different terms and what they mean, this is for you. I hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, Spreadsheet Andy's about to make another appearance, and enjoy today's episode of the Pack a Day podcast. All right, so Spreadsheet Andy is officially back, and what I want to do is I want to kick things off with void years because this has been a major topic. It's going to be a topic moving forward and how Green Bay sort of restructures some of these deals so that they can open up salary cap space. So let's start off with looking at exactly how void years work. So we're going to take a very simple contract here today, and we're going to look at how it would work if Green Bay wanted to restructure it and add void years to the deal. So let's say that you've got, and we're just looking at this top one right now, all right? You've got a player that is on a $17 million contract set up for this year. And I'm going to keep these numbers nice and round to make it as easy as possible. Obviously, they're not usually this clean and simple, but all of the same, processes apply that we're going to go over today. So let's say you have somebody that has a $17 million base salary and they've got a $17 million cap hit. Let's just say for the sake of ease, they don't have any dead cap or signing bonus or anything else with this. It is just a base $17 million salary cap hit that is all base salary. And Green Bay wants to open up salary cap space. So what they're going to do is they're going to restructure this contract so that it is signing bonus instead of base salary. And just a very simple 101 here, base salary is going to be paid basically throughout the course of the year and is going to all go against your salary cap hit for the current year. If you sign somebody to a signing bonus, you're going to pay all of that up front. Think if you were to get a job and they were to give you a, $500 sign-on bonus. If you start this job today, you get that $500 right away and then you start the job, right? It's the same thing with players in the NFL. If they have the signing bonus, they immediately get that money. However, instead of that immediate sum of money going against the salary cap, it is spread out over the length of the contract. Limit 5 years. We'll get to that more in just a moment. But so that's basically how you're going to open up space using void years is you're going to take a contract and you're going to take that base salary and you're going to turn it into signing bonus, which then guarantees that money because signing bonus is guaranteed because remember, you paid for it day one. So that is out the door. That is gone. So signing bonus is guaranteed. Base salary in this scenario is not. There is sometimes where base salary is guaranteed, which we'll get into as well. But in this scenario, they've got a $17 base salary and we want to turn it into signing bonus so that we can lessen the burden of some of that salary cap hit. Now, a couple things that you need to know about signing bonuses. The first thing is that they can't go past 5 seasons. So you can only do 5 seasons worth of signing bonus and splitting it out between 5 years. So I can't sign this player to the Bobby Bonilla contract and sign him out until 2050 and have like a $23 million signing bonuses. That's $1 million each year for the next 23 years. You can't do anything like that. The most you can do is over 5 seasons. And the other thing is that the signing bonus over those 5 years, and you could do 4 years, you could do 3 years, you could do 2 years, etc. You could split it out in lower than 5 years, but the most it could be is 5 years. And the amounts over those periods of time have to be equal each year. So I can't say, all right, I'm going to do $0 in signing bonus this year. I'm going to do $2 million next year, none the following year, $2 million, and I'm going to do $15 million in the last year. You can't do anything like that. It has to be equal in every year that they are signed. In addition, you have to have some base salary. Remember, every player has some minimum base salary that they have, and that's based upon how many years of accrued experience that they have. We don't need to get into all of that today. If you want to see what the minimum salary is based on years in the league, you can do a simple Google search and find that out. But to make things super easy today, what we're going to say is that we are going to cut this player's base salary down to $2 million. All right, we're going to make it nice and easy, and it's easy for me to type here, but we're going to do a $2 million salary cap hit. Sorry, home row keys are important. All right, $2 million. I didn't plan for my keyboard being out of whack because of my microphone, so I apologize for that. But we're in a $2 million base salary, which means that we converted $15 million of base salary because they had a $17 million base salary, remember? We converted $15 million into signing bonus. As you can tell, I try to make this as nice and easy as possible. We're going to do that over the max 5 seasons, right? So we have 5 seasons that we're going to take $15 million. What does that equal out over 5 seasons? $3 million per year. Obviously, I know I don't want you guys to have to do the math here, but $3 million. And again, we're going to do that over all 5 seasons. So here's what we ultimately did. All right, if you remember before, our cap hit this year was going to be $17 million, and then we didn't have any dead cap whatsoever. All right, so here's how the void years work. These are all going to be void seasons. So if you want to put like void in here, you could do so, and you could void all of these down or whatever. But we have a $2 million base salary this year, and then we have a $15 million signing bonus spread between 5 seasons. So what did that actually do for us in this scenario? We still only have this player signed for 1 year. This is the only year that they can play under this contract. Now, we could work something out next year, an extension, something like that keeps them on the team. But for right now, we still only have them on the under contract for 1 season, and then next year that void year hits. But we signed it to a 5-year deal, meaning that we're going to spread this out between 5 seasons. It's not actually going to work that way though. But the first thing that you'll notice is that we have a $2 million base salary, and in 2023 we have a $3 million signing bonus just for this year. So our cap hit went from $17 million to $5 million. We saved $12 million in salary cap hit for this season. Now, if we were to cut this player though, or if we were to end the contract this year, instead of having 0 in dead cap because we just gave them the $15 million signing bonus, we now have $15 million in dead salary if we were to cut this player or trade this player in some capacity. So that changes things quite a bit. Now, you could June 1st or some things like that, but that's obviously not the point of our exercise right now. So now we get to next year and this contract voids, right? This does not go into $3 million into 2024, $3 million to 2025, $3 million to 2026, $3 million to 2027. It doesn't work that way. When the contract officially voids, all of this dead cap for future seasons accelerates into 2024. So you now have a dead cap hit of $12 million in 2024. So how it works, and on its simplest terms, you had a 1-year $17 million salary cap hit, right? 1 year, they're going to play for you this year. They're going to make $17 million. Instead, what you now have is now we got them down to $5 million in salary cap this year. That's awesome, right? We saved $12 million in salary cap space that we can go out and sign other players. The issue is we now have a $12 million dead salary cap charge on our salary cap for next year that unless we re-sign that player in some capacity, we can't do anything with. That is just $12 dead million for no player on our roster next year. So it does open up salary cap space. As you saw, we opened up $12 million in salary cap space. What we basically did is we took $12 million now and we put it to $12 million in the future and said, screw it, we'll worry about that later. We want to go spend that $12 million right now, like a teenager with a credit card that's burning a hole in their pocket. That's basically what you're doing. And there's a point and a time for that. If you have a team that's ready to win right now and you've got a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers that's potentially ready to retire in a couple seasons and you know there's going to be a rebuild down the road, you might say, I don't care about a $12 million salary cap charge 2 years from now because Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be on the team and I need to open up a win now window right now. So I'll worry about all of that stuff later. Let me have as much salary cap space that I can play with right now so I can try and keep this window open. I'm going to pay for it later in a very big way, but I'll figure that out down the line when we're probably going to hit the fan anyway. Let's go out and try to win right now. So that's basically what you're looking at with void years. Now, I do want to do let's do one other thing really quick here. So let's say, what if, and this is just to give you another easy way of looking at this. Let's say this player had a $17 million base salary, but with a $5 million signing bonus still left over that you had to pay. So it doesn't change all that much. Remember, now you have a $22 million cap hit because you're paying both of these under your salary cap for this year. And then you've got a $5 million dead cap charge from the signing bonus. Remember, the base had nothing guaranteed. If we want to do the same thing, we can certainly do so. We can get this down to $2 million. Again, apologize for my keyboard being slightly out of place here. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to copy this from above. We're going to do our $3 million. We're just going to put it in a restructure category here. It's still a signing bonus. Doesn't really matter. Just a way to separate the two because we already had a signing bonus on the books. So now you still have this $5 million signing bonus. So you might say, Andy, how about we restructure that too? Doesn't work that way. Can't restructure the signing bonus. You already paid it out. It's already been accounted for, basically. You can't do anything with that. You can only do something with the base salary. So now I've got this $10 million salary cap hit here because, I've got my $5 million base that I have up here, but I still have $5 million signing bonus remaining. So I've got $10 million salary cap hit. And then next year is when I'm going to have that $12 million cap hit still from the 12 million that's remaining on my restructured bonus. So basically works the exact same, but again, it's just a little bit different because I have that signing bonus. And I just wanted to point out, you can't do anything if you have that signing bonus on it to change it or spread it out or anything like that. All right, the next thing I wanted to talk about was base salary versus signing bonus. And I did go over this a little bit already, but there is a difference between base salary and signing bonus. As I mentioned, with your base salary, that is your salary that you are going to earn over the course of the year. You're going to get a paycheck split up throughout, week by week throughout the year. And again, you're going to get that as the season goes along, and that base salary is going to go against your salary cap this year. The signing bonus, as mentioned, if you've got that $15 million signing bonus spread between 5 seasons, that's going to get split up year by year by year, and only the amount that you're paying this year is going to go against your salary cap this year. So there is a difference between base and signing bonus in that way. Also, base salary, there are some, I think it's a 25% you can increase year by year, but there's you can change the base salary year by year that you can't do with signing bonus. And then the other thing, of course, is that normally, not always, and we'll get to that again more in just a moment, but normally base salary isn't always guaranteed for most players. Some high-end salaries will have base guarantees for maybe the first few years of the contract. A lot of high-end rookies will have base year salaries that are guaranteed. We're going to look at Christian Watson's in just a moment to kind of give you an idea of that. But a lot of base salaries are usually not guaranteed, and signing bonuses always are guaranteed. So that's just kind of give you a difference between base salary and signing bonus. And again, the big one is that signing bonus is paid to the player immediately. So when you hear Aaron Rodgers or some player gets like this $100 million signing bonus, they're getting a check for $100 million immediately. Even though that salary or that signing bonus may go year by year by year, they are immediately getting that cash payment signing bonus when they sign that contract. And it's very important. This is something that doesn't get talked about very often, but it's very important that teams have cash on hand so that they can actually do those deals. There have been teams in the past that haven't had the cash on hand to do those type of deals, which really, hamstrings the GM on what type of deals and the Rust Ball in each organization for what they can do with certain contracts. If you don't have the ability to hand out a huge signing bonus up front because your organization is a little bit low on cash, maybe you just did a new stadium. I think the Raiders had that issue sort of come up, but it really kind of, again, hamstrings you for what type of deals that you can do and makes your job a lot harder as a salary cap guru like Russ Ball and as a general manager like a Brian Gutekunst. So the Packers have been in a position for a very long time now where they can make all of these deals work because they have the funds on hand with all of the stock sales and all of the stuff that they do to make sure the sledding hill. I know that the sledding hills and Titletown, that stuff gets joked around. All of that allows them to have the money on hand to do these type of deals, which is very, very much important. And that brings us to our next salary cap 101 which is cap versus cash. And I always say as a fan, you don't really worry about what cash is going out, assuming your franchise has the cash to go out, right? So what you're more focused on, I don't really care, that this contract, like let's just look at this one right here, that this contract is going to pay $17 million to this player this season. That's not what I care about. What I care about is that they are going to have a $5 million salary cap hit this season. And they're going to have a $12 million salary cap hit next season. How the cash goes out to the player should be irrelevant to you as a fan. What X player gets their sum payments, whether it's week by week or in one lump sum, that should not affect you as a fan. It doesn't affect anything. How it goes out from a salary cap standpoint does very much matter because you only get so much salary cap in any individual season that you can actually go out and spend. So just note that there is a difference between cash going out to a player and how much actually hits your salary cap. And this is a perfect example, right? There would be $17 million in this situation that would go to this player this upcoming season, but they're only costing $5 million against the salary cap this year. So there's a major difference there. So just know you shouldn't really worry about cash. You should worry about cap as a fan, but there is a difference between the two. The next thing I want to go over is dead money, because dead money plays a major role in any given contract. And that's where we're talking about dead salary cap here. And with these void contracts, again, this is an easy one to go over. As mentioned, when this contract voids next year, when 2024 comes and this contract automatically voids because of the way that the contract is set up, Green Bay will have a $12 million dead cap hit on their 2024 salary cap. That is legitimate. So if you've got a $250 million salary cap for next year, you now have only $238 million in salary cap because you have a $12 million dead cap hit for this player. As mentioned, you could theoretically sign this player to a new deal and restructure part of the signing bonus so that you can kind of play around with that a little bit. But more often than not, as we're about to see with all these Packers contracts that are voiding, they just void and you end up with a significant dead salary cap. And I was going to kind of go over this later, but this is where the big conversation comes in. This is going to be kind of my, finishing point here, but I'm going to go over it now just because it makes sense. This is where the big, hullabaloo of the salary cap is fake comes into play. The thing you noticed, right, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, is that you've got 5 years that you can play with when it comes to restructuring these bonuses. I can't take anything from 2028 right now. I can't use any signing bonus. I can't utilize 2028 as a restructure, anything like that. I can't, when it comes to signing bonus. I could sign a player to 2028 or 2029. I just can't push signing bonus out that far. So when next year comes around in 2024, now 2028 opens up, and now there's another year that I can extend signing bonuses out to, which is allowing me to restructure players and use 2028. And then the following year I can use 2029, and then the following year I can use 2030. So there's always another year that's sort of opening up. And I can always take the money that I owe now and now split it between the next 5 years, and then the next 5 years, and then the next 5 years. And you can sort of keep doing that to some extent. However, there's a couple caveats here. There's 3 really. It does catch up with you. If you do enough of those for a long enough period of time, eventually your cap just keeps shrinking to the point where you are very tight against the cap just to build your 53-man roster. And we've seen at times the Saints come a little bit close to that. No, every team has been mostly cautious with it, but we've seen teams that have had to release or watch players walk or trade Chauncey Gardner-Johnson at the last moment. Do you think the Saints wanted to trade Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? Do you think that was something that they were excited to do? No, but they didn't have enough future salary cap space where they knew they needed to get something for him because they weren't going to have the space to sign him back to a big deal. It just eventually it catches up to you. We talked about Aaron Jones on the last few episodes of his new contract. And when you look at it on all of the things that Green Bay did to get him on a cheaper deal and push out that salary cap hit and everything like that, it all sounds great on the surface. But because you were set up with a $20 million salary cap hit this year, plus more, contract in future seasons, you now were forced basically to do some restructures. And what you ultimately have now for Aaron Jones is a 2-year, $32 million deal when the biggest running back free agent contract over the last 3 seasons was Melvin Gordon 3 years ago at $8 million a year. Part of that is due to some of the running backs that are really, really good sticking with their teams and signing before they hit free agency. But there hasn't been a huge appetite for running backs in free agency, and the highest is $8 million per year. That 16 plus million per year right now puts Aaron Jones at the highest per year value in the NFL at any of running backs, higher than Christian McCaffrey. So part of that is because they got him on cheaper deals in previous seasons, as I've mentioned, but you're now paying Aaron Jones a massive running back contract over two seasons when he might only play this year or just next year. And you're paying him a massive amount of money because, again, you've sort of painted yourself into a corner with all of the restructures that you've done in the past. And that's what sort of ends up happening is you keep doing these restructures over and over because it's the best scenario that you have, but it's not a great scenario because now you have a massive contract for Aaron Jones over the next 2 years, which Aaron Jones on the team, good thing. Aaron Jones at $16 million per year over 2 seasons at age 29/30 isn't the best thing in the world. And that's no diss against Aaron Jones. That just is what it is. Making Aaron Jones the highest paid running back on a per year basis over 2 years, probably not the best deal in the world to make, right? But they were pushed against the wall and had to do something, and this is what they ended up doing, which made sense because of the situation and circumstance that they were in. But that's what ends up happening. And more importantly, right, here's what happens, and I've mentioned this in the past, but what ultimately will happen is you will have all of this dead salary cap. Like, let's say Green Bay next year, and I don't know the exact number of what it's going to be, but let's say next year Green Bay has 50 million. Let's say the salary cap is 250 million and Green Bay has 50 million in dead cap. So their salary cap is 200 million. Meanwhile, let's just use the Carolina Panthers. I have no idea what their salary cap looks like. Let's say the Carolina Panthers, right? Let's say they have 250 million. Let's use the Chicago Bears actually, because they have a ton of salary cap space this year. Let's say they keep 30 million of that they can carry over into next season. And they don't have any dead cap next year because they've managed their cap very well because they didn't have any contracts that they needed to pay because they had all the salary cap space in the world. So next year, not only do they have 250 million, but they have got 30 million more that they carried over from 2023 because you can carry over a certain portion of your salary cap space. So they carry over 30 million. Green Bay has 50 million in dead cap. You've got Chicago with 280 million in salary cap next year. You've got Green Bay with 200 million in salary cap. There's an $80 million gap hit there. Meanwhile, because Chicago has all of their salary cap space open this year, they could front load contracts. So they could pay some of their guys exponential contracts this year that actually go lower next year, which means that they actually have some really good players on some really low contracts next year, whereas Green Bay is going to have more high-end cap hits because they've done all of these restructures. And you might say, well, yeah, Andy, but we just talked about you can open up, you can push some of that down the road because 2028 opens next year. Yeah, but 2028 opens for Chicago too, and every other NFL team too. And we just talked about Chicago. Chicago's got an 80 million head start now next year in this scenario that I'm giving you over Green Bay. And if you've got one team that's got $280 million to spend and another that has only $200 million to spend, and they both have the same avenue to open up as much more money as they want, the team with 280 has a lot of advantages. And what you'll end up happening is you'll end up with a handful of teams each year that have managed this well, that have a quarterback like Justin Fields that is still on a young contract, that has been picking in the top 5 of the draft for the more recent time period. They have the number 1 overall pick in the draft this year. And all of a sudden, you've got this base team that's really, really good. And now you have more salary cap space than almost any other team that you can go out and get a ton of super talented players. It's basically the formula that the Eagles just followed. And you might still get beat by the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That's possible. But that's how you open up a ton of salary cap space. So you can argue that, hey, there's always money that you can open up. That's true. There's a level of truth to that. There is a law of diminishing returns on it, but more importantly, there's going to be a team like the Chicago Bears probably that can still outspend you by 80 million, 100 million maybe, depending on how much dead salary cap space you have from all those voided contracts and all those restructures and how much salary cap they carried over and how much better situation that they're in because they didn't have to do all that stuff. And it just ultimately puts you behind the 8 ball. So these are sort of the basics of how a normal contract works, how a void works, how a restructure works, why dead cap hits matter. A couple other things that I wanted to go over with you really quick. So a lot of times these are, and thanks to Over the Cap for letting me steal these from them without their permission. But no, these are just online. You can go to Over the Cap for every contract. I highly recommend Over the Cap for all of your needs. For salary cap stuff, they're absolutely amazing. But this is Aaron Jones' contract up on top and then Christian Watson's contract down at the bottom. So just to kind of give you an idea of how you want to read this, first of all, let's take a look at Aaron Jones first. So we just talked about all of those restructures and voids, right? So we've got a base salary here of Aaron Jones now for $1.58 million, a prorated bonus of $5.7 million. This is when I on my last sheet where I did restructured bonus and signing bonus and said they're two different things. Over the cap is just combining those here. So you've got a restructured plus prorated plus signing bonus, etc., of $5.71 million. You've got a roster bonus of $400,000, and then you've got a workout bonus of $500,000. All of that adds up to basically $8.2 million against the salary cap hit this season. And then next year, you've got 11.1 in base salary. You've got 5.7 in prorated bonus, and then that workout and roster bonus again for a 17.7 mil cap hit. And then you've got 3 years of voids. That's all going to accelerate up into 2025 for a $6.6 million salary cap hit in 2025 when he's not even on the roster. So this gives you an exact idea. What we just kind of went over, this is what Aaron Jones' contract looks like. But a lot of people will ask, like, all right, how do roster game bonuses work and how do workout bonuses work and those sort of things? And most of the time, those things will all count against the salary cap. So as you see here, your salary cap number is 8.197. The base salary, the bonus, the per game bonus, and the workout bonus all equate into that 8.197 million. So all that stuff goes into it and is part of your salary cap hit. So it's not just the base and the prorated bonus, but some of those other per game bonuses and workout bonuses will go into that salary cap hit as well. This brings us to our next one, which is incentives and like that per game roster bonus. So those are considered incentives. Like if Preston Smith has a, sack incentive for how many sacks he has on a season, etc. Those can be likely to be earned or unlikely to be earned incentives. And it sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. So if Aaron Jones is expected to meet his per game roster bonus, if it is a likely to be earned incentive, which is based on what he did in the previous season, if he's likely to earn his per game roster bonus, then the $400,000 goes against the salary cap this year. And if he doesn't meet that bonus, Green Bay would get credited back for that next year. And they would sort of, again, give just a credit back to Green Bay on next year's salary cap. That's how it would work. Works the exact way on the other side. If it's an unlikely to be earned bonus, all right, if it's unlikely to be earned, then that $400,000 or a portion of it would not go against Green Bay's salary cap this year. But if he earned it, they would then have a debit on next year's salary cap. So that's how likely to be earned and unlikely to be earned bonuses work. They're either likely to be earned or not likely to be earned. And if it doesn't happen, then they're either credited or debited on next year's salary cap. All right, the next thing I wanted to go over is guaranteed salaries. So we're going to take a look a little bit more at Christian Watson's contract here. So this is Christian Watson's. And as a rookie, a lot of your base salary is guaranteed. Again, a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, etc. Those guys have a lot of contract guarantees on their base salary. But how this works is on Christian Watson's, not only does he have this prorated bonus, this signing bonus basically, that is a guaranteed portion of his contract, but in his case, in how most rookie contracts, at least early in the draft, are set up, is a good chunk of his base salary is also guaranteed. So in 2022, fully guaranteed, 2023, fully guaranteed, 2024, fully guaranteed, and then 2025, he has $150,000 of his contract guaranteed. So that's how that works, is that even if he were to get released or traded, etc., that salary is all guaranteed except for, 1.4 million in 2025 of his base salary. That's the only thing that's not guaranteed. So the difference, though, and the other thing that I wanted to go over here, there's a difference between prorated bonus guarantee and salary guarantee. And this is where we get into, if you trade a player, do you take on the salary cap hit, or does the team that you're trading them to take on the salary cap hit? And it's very, very simple. Once again, if it is a bonus, if it is a signing bonus, that's a prorated bonus. If you are the team trading that player away, you take on that prorated bonus. So in Christian Watson's case, if I were to trade Christian Watson right now, these 3 years remaining, 23, 24, and 25 of signing bonus, I would take on as dead salary cap hit on my books. That I would take that on. However, the guaranteed salaries, these guaranteed salaries right here, would carry over to the team that would acquire him. So the acquiring team takes on any base salary guarantees. That's why when I talk about Darnell Savage, who has all base salary guarantee and no prorated bonus guarantee, that the team that would acquire him would take on all of his guaranteed money, all of his contract, and Green Bay would have no dead salary cap hit by trading him, which is why there's an incentive if you attach a pick to Darnell Savage by having some team take on his contract, you get off of that contract entirely. That is usually not the case. You almost always have some sort of prorated bonus that you have to take the dead cap hit on as the trading team. With Darnell Savage, it is all base salary. It is all guaranteed base salary. So the team that's acquiring him takes on that salary. And then the last thing that I wanted to go over here, and we can take a look at this with Aaron Jones, actually. So is pre-June 1st versus post-June 1st. So you might hear that June 1st deadline. All right, if we cut him pre-June 1st, this happens. If we cut him post-June 1st, this happens. So with pre-June 1st, with a release pre-June 1st, what happens is that you take on all the remaining prorated bonus. So that's why here, and you can see cut pre-June 1st, that you would take on $18 million in dead salary cap for Aaron Jones. You would take on all this remaining dead salary cap right here, this 5.7, 5.7, 2.5, 2.5, 1.7. You would take on all of that on your salary cap this season. It would all accelerate into your 2023 dead cap hit immediately. So releasing Aaron Jones right now, not a good idea at this point. Would be a terrible idea, in fact. You would end up paying $10 million more right now than his base salary just to release him. Not a good idea. If you were to post June 1st cut Aaron Jones, still not a good idea, by the way. But if you were to do that, how that works is only this year's signing bonus, the $5.7 million in 2023, would count against this year's salary cap. And then all of the rest, this remaining, 5, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12-ish, would go in towards next year's salary cap. So you basically get to put all future years into 2024 and just the 5.7 that you owe this year into 2023. So that does give you some flexibility. However, there is also a catch with pre-June 1st and post-June 1st. The biggest catch being that you can't actually use that money that you saved until after June 1st. So you can do it now, and what it basically does is help out the player. You can release them now, and so they can go find a team now, and you still can't use that money until post-June 1st. But it does make it so that the player can go find a team earlier if you want to do that player a little bit of a favor. So you do get that, you do get that benefit once June 1st hits, but if you do it before June 1st, you still don't see the benefit until actual June 1st. So that is how pre-June 1st and post-June 1st works. Before I forget, by the way, if you have any questions on any of this, please post below. If you have any other salary cap questions, post below and I will do my best to answer those. And if there's more questions on anything salary cap related, I can do another episode and break down anything else on any questions that you guys have as well. All right, last slide here. I know this is hard to see. It doesn't matter. The numbers really don't matter here. Some of this stuff isn't updated, like Aaron Jones. I didn't update his contract yet. It doesn't matter. What I want to go over here is 51 versus 53. So in the offseason, only your top 51 contracts, which is, I somehow did it perfectly. Top 51 go against your salary cap. So these 51 contracts right here would go towards your salary cap in the offseason, meaning your bottom 4 don't count against the salary cap. Or if you were to sign 20 more players, only your top 51 salary cap hits go against the salary cap until you reach the point where the season starts and now 53 players count against your salary. So then at that point, you got to account for those 2 additional contracts, which at this point would be 1.5 million. The other thing that I want to point out here, and there's a benefit in the offseason, it just gives you a little bit more wiggle room. As I look at the accounting for stuff, I just always look at what the 53 costs because you're going to have to get there at some point anyway. So it gives you a little bit more wiggle room, but it's not really that big of an advantage. If anything, it opens up, like I said, about $1.5 million of cap space sometimes, maybe $2 million, depending on where your contracts are at. But it just is a little bit of room to play around with up until the start of the regular season, but you basically need to be so much below that anyway by that time that it ultimately doesn't matter that much. And ultimately, when you get to the season, your top 53 contracts are what counts. But this is why when you when you think of a player that's added to the roster, right? So right now our 51st contract, or our 53rd, whatever you want to look at, is $750,000, right? So when you draft a player and sign that player to a contract, or let's say tomorrow Green Bay signed Rudy Ford to a new contract on a 1-year, $1 million deal, right? You might think, okay, Rudy Ford is now going to take an extra $1 million from the salary cap. That's not how it works, because remember, your 51st player right now makes $750,000. So by adding him to your 51st spot, now Rudy Ford makes $1 million, but your 750 guy falls off. So you've actually only added $250,000 to your salary cap. So you have to kind of think of that as whatever player you sign, if you're thinking of how it's going to affect the salary cap, you actually also have to subtract whoever is your 51st or in season your 53rd player coming off of that, coming off of the roster that is going to have that additional space. So it's not always just because you signed Rudy Ford to a $1 million deal that now you're $1 million less than salary cap in this scenario. And especially because Gene Delance is a non-guaranteed deal, I have no dead cap hit from releasing him. I can, my $1 million guy is Rudy Ford. Delance falls off. I only added $250K in that scenario to my salary cap. So that makes, hopefully that makes some sense as well. The other thing, and I've mentioned this in the past as well, that I think is super important to go over is what actually counts against the salary cap. So a lot of people think, all right, I got my 53-man roster and that's my salary cap. And if only it were that easy. But unfortunately, it is not. Your practice squad is going to cost about almost $3.5 million, which is all going to go against the salary cap. Every time you elevate a player from the practice squad to the active roster, they get a minimum veteran or a minimum salary for that player for that game. You're adding usually about $10K, somewhere around there, in additional salary cap every time you elevate a player. That counts against the salary cap. Let's say David Bakhtiari goes on IR again this season. That entire salary cap hit, but it's not like Madden, that entire salary cap hit stays on as your salary cap hit. Just because he's on IR doesn't change anything. And then what do you have to do? You have to sign a new player to the roster to take his place. And what does that do? That whole new contract, whether it's, maybe it's only $500,000 for the remainder of the season or something like that, that's $500,000 more that goes against your salary cap hit. So if you've got 20 guys on your IR at the end of the year and you had to go sign 20 guys on vet minimum deals, like you might be talking about an additional, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 million on your salary cap based on when you had to sign those players. So like I said, plus practice squad, all of those things, practice squad call-ups. So you can't go and just be like, all right, I've got 200 million to spend. I can spend all of that 200 million and on my 53 guys and I'm good to go. You have to make sure that you have avenues to open up additional space or have kept a slush fund for when guys go on IR. If you want to pick up free agents or claim players, sign a guy off of another team's practice squad, have your own practice squad, all of those sort of things, you have to have salary cap space available to do those sort of things. So it's not as simple as I've got 200 million to spend. Let me go buy my 53 players and I'm good to go. You've got to leave a good chunk of money open so that you can operate throughout the course of the season. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I hope you enjoyed this Salary Cap 101, Offseason 101 edition of the Pack a Day podcast. As I mentioned, if you have questions, please post them below. I'm going to do everything I can to get to those. This just gives you a small idea of what Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball and the entire front office has to go through as they make these decisions throughout the course of the offseason. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll be right back here tomorrow. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.